Uh-oh, you might have lost him.
Well, you can proceed, Gwen.
Oh, okay. So I'm about to enter a link into the Q&A field, the question and answer area of this meeting. It's a link to issues that are usually require public comment. So it's the environmental documents, usually the draft EIRs and things like that for different projects are at this link. Yesterday, the comment period for the revised draft EIR for the Southern California International Gateway project ended. Now, that doesn't really affect us particularly, but as a harbor community council, we should be concerned with potential concerns of our community neighbors, including those in Long Beach. But there is another draft EIR that still has a public comment period that we might want to look at if we have time. I don't think so. Um, in a moment, you guys should be able to look at the comment and you can click on there and review it. Other than that, being the sustainability chair, I hope to collaborate with the port committee on environmental issues. When we talk about the waterfront connectivity plan, I would love to speak on that. And well, but thank you very much for letting me be here.
Thank you, Gwen. I don't want to step on Christian. There he is. Christian, you're back. Good.
Yeah, there I am. Yeah, it's so strange. Maybe my local internet is just overwhelmed by the recording aspect, because as soon as I press record, my router like shut off. So I'm using just like my mobile data on my phone now, but we will resolve that later. I made Dan the host so that the meeting can continue if I happen to have further internet issues. But anyone else, we're kind of, oh, Craig is here. Let me make Craig a panelist, or Dan, can you make Craig a panelist?
If I knew how to do it, I would do it instantly. Sorry. Participants.
You can press, yeah, go to Craig's name and then,
Oh,
like if you, yeah, if you go to attendees and then you press Craig's name, and then there's usually a ability to make him a panelist.
I believe I just did that, I hope.
Oh, okay, good.
Question to the committee members, can you see the link that I posted in the Q&A?
Q&A, it looks like there's something there. Yes, from Gwen Henry, thank you.
I see it.
It is there. So,
Okay,
thank you,
I
Gwen.
think Craig's here. Welcome,
Yes, he
Craig. We
is.
see the link. When Dan, could you also make me a co-host if you click on my name? And excuse the technical issues, everyone, in this age of varying, what would you call, internet equitability throughout the Los Angeles Harbor area. Okay, I'm a co-host now. Oh, thank you, Dan. So Craig, we just went through public comment, and then we were going through one of the first meteor topics, which was just starting up like a general discussion on port issues. And then we had a couple of hands. We had Gwen just went, and now I think Doug has his hand up. So go ahead, Doug, and then Craig, if you have anything after that.
Christian,
Then that would be good.
Christian, excuse me. Did I properly make Craig a co-host?
Yeah, I'm fine here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Then go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I was going to tell you that Gwen's link that you put in the Q&A is not visible to anybody who's an attendee. It's only the panelists. So I don't know how many people you have in this meeting, but it might be worthwhile just to make everyone a panelist.
It's up to our president. I mean, our chairs.
That's reasonable.
I
They have a
don't,
pretty good
I don't see why we would do this in a regular meeting, why we don't make everybody panelists.
So that's okay?
Yes.
Okay, then,
Yeah, I like it too.
all right, Doug, you're a panelist. Tom wants, oh, you're already a panelist, never mind. Sorry. uh,
Gwendolyn, Doug,
Gwen, you're a panelist. I think Tom Norman is already one. And I think we're all in now,
I think we are.
except, oh, Pat. I'll make Pat a panelist. So, all right, that now we're all in. If you notice that number 8 go up, we can add whoever comes in later. Thank you. So I will step back here. I think since Greg is now here, were there, before we go on, Christian, were there any other public comments among people who came in later? And,
No, well, we kind of moved on from that section, but
very, very
I
good.
think that we
Sorry.
could come back if it
Thank
would be the pleasure of the board, we could come back, or the pleasure of the committee, but let's go ahead. I think we heard Gwen's opening statement on kind of port issues, and now we can, Doug made his comment about the link. Craig, do you have anything to say? This is the opening kind of initial general discussion on the port stuff.
Unmute, Greg.
No, my concern is always on the port stuff is the direct effects on Northwest and approaching the problems that are in Northwest. We have a lot of projects that have been left unfinished, I think. And there's stuff that, as I forwarded that article to Christian about the pollution, there's so much pollution going now with all those freighters sitting outside the port that, and everything's getting put off by the port, by the city. We're paying the price. And we need to be, my personal thing is we've not been proactive enough.
Very good. Christian, are
Okay.
you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So
Okay.
just in my own perspective, riding my bike all through the years along North Gaffey, you can definitely see that I think the railway has a big impact on Northwest and all that rail traffic. And maybe some of you can clarify how related and what jurisdiction the port has on the railways. I don't think that, actually, I don't know. I would pose that if you don't mind. Can we get a brief reminder of the jurisdiction over the railway and how that gets decided, who can use it and at what times? Would anyone,
I can do that.
if anyone minds to share that, that'd be excellent.
I can do that.
And I do see one hand from Pat. Pat, do you have on that?
Yeah, I've got a lot of information on that. I mean, the port probably started about 1928 in a prior agreement, basically set up a Harbor Beltline Railroad, and now it's Pacific Harbor Lines. And so the port really has jurisdiction over all of the rail lines in the port area. There's a northern boundary. I think it's actually Sepulveda Boulevard. And the PHL agreement extends over to parts of Long Beach as well. So if you're looking at an issue with the railroad, the port has the ownership and so forth, and they have a management committee set up, and the PHL is a kind of a consortium of operating railroads, contributes railroad workers and equipment to the operations, the switching operations of the for cargo in the port area. So if there's a problem with the rail lines or the rail operations in the port, then the port is the one that's ultimately responsible.
Oh, okay, great. That's excellent information.
Let's see.
By the way, if you're looking at the view behind me, on the right is a Vincent Thomas Bridge. Next to it is China Shipping. And on the other side, which I can't point to correctly, is Yangming. And across the way, I don't know which one that is. I keep asking. But most of the terminals
And Jim's.
on the San Pedro side are right down the street from us.
Right.
Dan, did you have your hand up again?
I did. But I see that, is there one other person with their hand up? Oh, Pat still, okay. Yes, I just wanted to say, in addition to the railroads, again, this is my first meeting and I'm ignorant, but it's always been my understanding that ships, both in port and idling out in the ocean, are close to the primary source of pollution of particulate matter and other types of pollution. So we have the railroads, we have the ships themselves, and of course the thousands of trucks that are in and out, and other vehicles, but the trucks that are in and out every day. So it's a multi-pronged issue. Certainly, we need to be cognizant of all of it, and I know we are, and people far smarter than I have worked on this for years. I guess my question might be to Pat or anyone else, what is the port's response to these three, call them three major sources of pollution?
I put my hand back up. Yeah.
You know, please respond to that one.
Well, the issue of, Dan is right, that ships in the past have been a major source of pollution in the air basin, and it has been addressed over the years, probably for about the last 30 years in a couple of ways. One was the federal implementation plan to comply with the Clean Air Action, or excuse me, with the Clean Air Act. There were some mandates in that, and the port worked a lot to get the federal implementation plan approved for the whole basin, and that addressed some of it. And it addresses things like the idling of ships and in the port, and that's where the plug-in proposals came from. You know, to ships plugged in to an electrical source when they're in port rather than idle with their ship engines on. But also it addresses things like separation of ships in the shipping lane, speeds for ships within 25 miles of the coast, and also the kind of fuel that they use. And those standards slowly have become kind of worldwide because the United States started requiring them, those fuel standards for entry into United States ports. So that addressed some of it, but the major overhaul on air quality that addresses not only the ships but also the trucks and yard equipment and things like that is the Clean Air Action Plan, which has been through several iterations over the years, and that's something that involves the two ports together. It's called the Clean Air Action Plan, usually referred to as the CAAP, and that's where those standards come into play. Ships that are idling out at sea, I don't know what they do. If they probably keep something running, to be able to power the ship's equipment while it's at sea, but I don't know that they keep their motors running while they're on the hook, on the anchor.
Actually, Pat, I can tell you.
Okay.
There are rules about this sort of thing. They do have engines running all the time. They don't shut down engines when they are at anchor. They run them at very slow speeds is how it works. They are required when they are, I want to say it's 15 miles off the coast anywhere within that 15-mile off the coast range, such as the Catalina Channel or even, coming in and out of port or anchored. They're required to slow, and by slowing down, it reduces the diesel particulate and exhaust significantly. that's how they get the numbers down.
Sorry if you feel like you're in trouble, but
Okay, we have a few hands up, and so
But
let's take.
could
Oh,
I
I'm
just-
sorry.
let me just finish
I
real
thought you were
quick.
finished. Of course, of course.
But what is significant about the ships that have been anchored out there, they are not covered by AQMD or our local regulation. When they're anchored, even within the breakwater, they come under federal regulation. This is something that Chris Cannon had actually addressed at the Port President's meeting a couple of months ago. So, you know, those ships anchored out there are contributing to more pollution.
Do you know what the latest is, Doug, on the alternate fuel? You know, the bunker fuel stuff that you run at high seas is terrible stuff, but then they also carry some alternate fuel in the tanks when they're in close to shore. Do you know what the standards are for that? In the federal
I
standards?
do not, and I have to tell you, most ships out there are not doing a multi-fuel situation. It's,
Right.
you know, you've got a lot of experimental stuff, including electric battery powered ships that Rolls-Royce is working on. But the future Maxton have some experimental vessels out there that operate with propane. For instance, they have big
Good.
propane tanks on the stern, but God knows how that's going to work out. So,
Thank you. Christian, I see we have some other hands up. Maybe you want to take those now?
Okay, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the comment. We have several other hands as well. Let's take Lou's comment. Lou, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to add to what Doug was saying, that there have been a lot of extra ships out, and they've been, you know, anchored and waiting to come in, and it's been a huge issue for a while. And the ones close to the port are included in the port emissions data, but ones farther out to sea, and yeah, Chris Cannon will tell you, but however many miles out are not included in the data for the port, but they are included in the data for the Southern California numbers. So it's something that's the distinguishment that you have to look at, and it's all there.
Thank you. Gwen Henry, your hand is up.
Well, now I have a lot of cleanup comments, starting with the rail. Of course, concern that we have in Northwest San Pedro is the rail spur that transports butane and propane from Rancho LPG. That small portion has different jurisdictions. I'll try to get some of the papers and letters that we've done in the past so that you guys understand where we are right now. But the last concern was Rancho LPG agrees that the transport on that rail spur and moving out towards the port needs to be of utmost safety. And we have a concern with the responsibility in the jurisdiction not completely being addressed. There was a derailment in December of 2019 that was on the Harry Bridges side of the rail. It was only discovered through a Facebook post and a picture of it. This is not the only derailment. It's just that with all of that particular rail spur is right there under bridges, near cars and vehicles, near trucks and freeways. It is of concern. Even Rancho LPG agreed that the safety of those cars as they are transported away are of great concern. They actually even take Rancho LPG at risk if one should derail and there be an accident. It could be a serious issue. Now, with the fuels that are going on with ships, there has been a movement, a global movement, to go to lower sulfur concoctions, formulations. Lowering the sulfur content of bunker fuel is something that has been worked on. Of course, the different designs for those engines, if you try to go to a different formulation, it may not run as efficiently. So there are different things that are going on design-wise. The industry itself, the shipping industry itself, the ship design and building and the transport is its own entity. It is not beholden to any country. It's not beholden to any rules. And in the Paris Climate Accord, the shipping industry, which is by itself, if you add all of the ships globally, is the 5th largest country contributor to greenhouse gases in the world. If you accumulate the shipping industry and the ships all together, that is the 5th largest quote unquote country and pollution in the world.
Gwen, thank you.
Yeah.
In the interest of time, because Mr. Chairman, Christian, I believe we have limited time for this meeting, if I'm correct. But so let's politely, I must say, move on. I see Craig's
Yeah,
hand
let's get
up.
some other comments and.
Thank you.
There is a significant economic movement towards propane. There's been several articles because propane is now cheaper than running bunker fuel from what I'm understanding, and it's being pushed. So that's probably going to be the way it's going. But right now, this real situation is we are a cancer hotspot, and the port has delayed doing anything till 2022 about implementing anything. That was in the an LA Times article. Things keep getting delayed, and we are considered the most polluted part of Los Angeles. So sitting by and idly listening to the port and everybody do this, that, and the other thing shouldn't be an option.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands up right now.
Yeah, you might
So-
want to move on to the next agenda item now. And I think we had something, again, thanks, Dan, for the reminder that we do have to adjourn at about 5:25, because there's another Northwest San Pedro committee right after this one. But we had something on discussion of port police patrols. Does anyone want to discuss that and why, and whether they are consistent or not? Port police patrols.
Are you kidding me?
I can address that because it was my concern, and it's
Good.
been a
Go ahead.
continuing concern. So the port police keep telling us they're patrolling different areas, like the warehouse is up on what is that? That's
Westmont.
Westmont. So those warehouses, they tell us sometimes they're patrolling it, sometimes not. Sometimes they tell us they patrol everything below Gaffey. Sometimes they tell us they patrol everything below Pacific. But every time they tell us something, months later, year later, it changes. And you know, it's confusing, and I think we should get the port police to talk to us about that and what they are prepared to do and why they keep changing what they're telling us.
Mr. Christian, can we invite the port police to an upcoming meeting?
Yeah, I actually requested that they submit their reports beforehand so that the board has time and the committee has time to review them and then have better perspective before the board meeting. But what we could do, I think maybe it'd be better if we invite them to either this meeting or the public safety meeting. What do we think of that before kind of asking for kind of like an in-depth inquiry like this? Would it be good for them to have them as guests at this meeting or the public safety meeting?
Let's say, either, perhaps public safety, but they are the port police and we're the port committee. So
I do believe that the Public Safety Committee has taken up that issue. There was a recent fire, and the jurisdiction, over on the green belt over there on Gaffey, that's very close to the rail, and just on beyond that is the 110 freeway, and in some areas it's the port. The jurisdiction, once again, is difficult for ensuring that those areas are cleaned up. It's thin strips that have different jurisdictions, and so that's something that I think Craig, you and I even discussed about sorting those jurisdictions out.
Okay, does anyone else have a comment?
So Christian, you will work that out with the chair of public safety.
Oh, yes, yes, I can coordinate with her. I'm gonna start a meeting for her at 5:30, so definitely.
Good, good. Speaking of that green strip along between Gaffey and the 110 freeway, the first item, or one of the first agenda items is discussion about what I'll call renaming that green strip in honor of John Greenwood. It's listed here as John Greenwood Park. It's not really intended to be John Greenwood Park, but it's a public green space. And the intention originally was that it would be the John Greenwood Neighborhood Walk, I think is a more accurate description. At the time of John's passing in 2012, this was first discussed. And I will take the hit that it got dropped along the way, at least primarily by me. But for those of you who are new to us, I just want to say that John Greenwood was an esteemed, longtime member of, I believe, a founding member, Pat may correct me, of our neighborhood council. He was president several times. He was chief operating officer of San Pedro Peninsula Hospital before it joined with Little Company. He was a realtor. He was a member of in fact, the chair, I believe, of, if I get the letter here wrong, the Prop Q committee, which bore primary oversight of bond funds used to build new police stations and other buildings. And his group oversaw the building of the Harbor Police Station, for instance. He was a marvelous man, deeply connected to the community, bright as can be, worked hard for the community. We all treasured his friendship and his guidance and his participation. And it would be the most natural thing in the world to name that meandering sidewalk along Gaffey, which is really a nice break between the hard-edged port and the hard-edged commercial strip on Gaffey. It would be the most natural thing in the world to rename that for him. And Mr. Chairman, co-chairmans, I would endorse going back to work and seeing if that can be accomplished.
Yeah, Craig, do you think that it would be worth it to try to advocate for a renaming of sorts?
Yeah, no, the
And
board
on
has
them?
already got on record for this several times. And that's why I keep bringing it up. I mean, John Greenwood did a lot for it. We said we wanted to do this, but it hasn't proceeded. So we need to bring it up to the port and say, I mean, in the meantime, we've got DiCarlo Square, we've got Little Italy. Why can't we get the park, this green, I would say it was a parkway, named after John Greenwood, which is also segues into the other part, which is incomplete projects, because there's a portion of that parkway that's supposed to be going under the bridge and coming and connecting up to the other side.
Yes, and I think we would need to check in with the port on that if I'm not wrong. It's a jurisdictional thing and all that, but it was intended to be completed at a certain point in time. We've probably gone past that certain point in time, but yes, that area around the skate park and going up to the intersection of Harry Bridges and Channel Street is supposed
I
to be
also saw
completed.
that Pat had a hand up after this.
Oh, very, very good. I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, Diana really is the one that should talk on this. I think those were issues that were in the issues committee, weren't they?
Yeah,
Well,
They have been at various times. Yes. Yes, that's correct.
the Planning and Land Use Committee has been tracking, actually, from the inception, the parkway completion. There were a number of issues that came up that interfered with the completion, unfortunately. But those issues have all been resolved now. The latest one had to do with the park and ride, but they've all been resolved. The port has told me that they're going out to bid in November. I'll believe it when I see it, because they have repeatedly given us dates when they're going out to bid for this project. They've been giving us those dates for the last 10 years, probably. I did a week ago, approximately a week ago, I emailed Augie again and said, what's the latest? Is it really going out to bid in November? And Augie's been off on vacation, so I assume that when he comes back next week, I will hear something back, because he's usually pretty good about replying to those things.
Would you say
Start
that
tracking it.
at the point that does happen and they do send out bids and that sort of thing, this would be an opportune time to re-engage about the subject of naming the area for John?
I would think so.
Christian, I would
The
say,
other- Let me just say one other thing, which is the last conversation I had with the port about renaming, which is quite a few years ago now, they said, well, we have to do a renaming policy first. And every time I asked them about the renaming policy, because I did for a couple of years track on that one, they hadn't done it. So,
You're beginning to remind me of what went on. Thank you. Thank you.
well, the opportune time was when Cynthia was there, because she would have pushed it through, unfortunately.
Yeah.
yeah, Cynthia Ruiz. Yeah, you know, John Greenwood is godfather to our children, and John and Karen were godparents for our children. Hey, Christian, it seems to me that really the issue is to decide which committee is going to bird dog this thing, keep track of it. Up to now, it's been land use or issues? Planning and land use. Yeah, we've been tracking the money and sitting down with the port planning people and the port engineers. They've got a team that is assigned to it, and they've been out 3 or 4 times at least every time they get a delay. I mean, it's not worth going into all of the different things that have happened with that property. We can do it because we're aware of it. So I think you just need to decide where you want it tracked, Chris.
Okay, and that's something that we can definitely discuss about here. I know that the planning committee definitely, in the issues committee definitely has worked on these things in the recent past and has like a track record and some relationships that have been developed. So perhaps we sort of work together and transfer over time that level of expertise and perspective. I know that we don't want to be working on things simultaneously. That might not be as effective.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
the chairs, or maybe the executive committee could probably figure all that out. Yeah,
Go ahead, Craig.
Okay, I mean, if we're working directly on port things and we're talking to the people at the upper levels, we can be pushing for the same things as other committees. It's not just one person sake. The more people talking about something and pushing something, seems the more it happens. Things get it's working from one side and letting it sit there that stops things from happening. The more people in our community that are involved in stuff and more people that push at it, the more places we push this, the more likely it's going to happen. It's not the other way around. This is, they hear it from one committee and then it goes to another committee, and every time we talk to them, we say, what about this? If every time at the board meeting, we have an ask, what's going on with the park? What's going on with renaming? What's going on this? Every time we go to the port committee meetings, we ask the same questions. Sooner or later, everybody's going to start getting answers. But, everybody's working at different, just because other committees are working at different on it in different approaches doesn't mean that it can't go from one committee to another and another committee can't work on that same issue. We're all part of a board.
Fair enough.
That is true. I think that certainly the House of Representatives and the federal government definitely share joint jurisdiction and then work on different issues, and the laws kind of pass back and forth. But since we are a volunteer organization, we might just endeavor to be as efficacious with our time as we can. But that's a good point, that we can have different perspectives, and perhaps if more people are speaking, then there will be more attention to us. But I think ultimately it would go back to the board usually. I mean, we're kind of speaking in generalities, but I think on this one thing, we could focus back on this one thing, which is this park naming. Then if it's already been supported in the past, maybe I would think that the support still stands, and then I can work with perhaps Pat and Diana or anyone else on the board who can think of a good staff member from the port to talk to, and then I can reach out to them, or maybe me and the other members of the port committee could reach out to them and say that we supported this in the past and we want to see this being done. Does that sound reasonable?
Goes to me.
Okay. Gwen, did you have a comment?
Yes, I did. We could always create an ad hoc committee, representatives from different committees meeting in a side meeting. I think that would be true for the clean air issues. Can I also mention something that Phil Nicolay was working on before the committee dissolved? Some of the issues.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Gwen, I'd just like to say ad hoc committees are great and have a place. I think Craig may be right in this case, that full court press to the port politely from three different directions on a continuing basis may finally yield some fruit. So I agree with Craig on that. Go ahead, Gwen. Thank you.
Okay.
So some of the things I remember Phil working on, this was kind of the regular business that they always maintained, was actually a pet project, was trying to find out from the Northwest San Pedro community about port noise, especially with the rail and the pressures of the port. Another thing that they kept was a long list of the different funding opportunities for different projects through the port. One of the things, I mean, some of them were amenities along the waterfront. Other things were other issues, but they were constantly suggesting different things. I believe that there was an interest in creating a memorial to veterans of wars, or a some kind of court. I don't remember whether it was a tennis court or something like that. Forgive me, I don't remember. It was quite a while ago, but they had a series of recommendations, and there's that. So, but the port noise and finding out the impact on the community was something important. And for what Craig was just mentioning regarding the ship idling, we are in an extraordinary time. I don't know if everybody has seen that article recently. Gene Soroka has been published in Time magazine. He's talking about the inequity in export imports. We are taking a brunt in having many ships come in, and they're waiting in line. We're taking a pollution hit, but when it comes to the ships leaving, they are empty. They are empty. So we're causing a pollution impact that belies the actual economic value of what we should be doing, and what the port should be doing now, and nationally what we should be doing.
Okay, well, thanks, Gwen. Yeah, perhaps we can revisit some of those things if we so choose to. And then just in the interest of time, I did want to say that on the agenda, we had the waterfront connectivity plan, and I know that the planning committee has been working on that. And then we had a presentation by Michael Cham, and he also made presentations at some of the other neighborhood councils and indicated that he's definitely open to comments from different sources. And I believe at our last board meeting, we authorized Pat to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, but Pat to kind of take the lead on that. But this could be a forum for us to identify some comments that we might want to give to Pat, or independently to Michael Cham as just stakeholders. Pat, is that correct?
It's the gist of it is that we've been trying to find a way to have input into the connectivity plan consulting agreement. I mean, the chamber and the neighborhood councils and everybody spotted that as the number one thing they wanted to have out of the PAIP money, the Public Access Improvement Project monies. The port said, yeah, okay, we'll do that, but we're going to run it. We're not going to tell you anything, and so on. So there's been a movement afoot to contribute to that. And it's probably going to, it looks like it's going to come in two ways. Is actually, I think Jason Herring is the person.
It was you and Jason.
Was Jason and I, Jason has a lot to contribute content-wise. I think that mainly I can advise on, how the port works internally, because I was there for so many years and so forth. So that's kind of underway. And, Christian, maybe I could take a minute to talk. I probably should have done it under the first agenda item. The primary role of the port committee in the past has been to advise on and analyze the environmental documents that the port puts out to support its improvement projects in industry, and then also to suggest to the board, the neighborhood council, mitigation measures to mitigate the air quality and transportation impacts and so forth. And just sitting back and kind of taking an overview look at things, all three neighborhood councils are really kind of reconstituting their port committees. All three neighborhood councils are kind of new councils, which happens, after every election. So Coastal is kind of reconstituting theirs, and they have, I think, probably the best prospects of the three for a good, strong port committee. And Central has theirs, and then of course Northwest has its. But I'm thinking that probably some effort ought to be made to have some joint committee meetings to hammer out or talk about, where do we want to go? What are the big policy issues that we want to address? And I have some specific things, and Gwen mentioned, a list that came out of the past, and she's right, and I know what was on that list as well for it. But I think that I'd like to see an effort made in that regard, primarily because right now there isn't anybody out there who really is qualified to look at an environmental impact report, for example, and comment on it. When we had Phil Nicolay, that's what he did for a living. And there are a couple people around who might be persuaded to advise, but I think that they should do it we should aim to do is have it done on an area-wide basis so that we get the gravitas and the credibility of having the 3 neighborhood councils together come in and say, hey, look, you've ignored the health consequences, the cancer risk formulations are all wrong. The project generation numbers, you haven't adequately, ameliorated the environmental impacts, that sort of thing would be greatly strengthened if they had all 3 neighborhood councils speaking in the same language to it. And right now, none of the 3 have a good resource to comment. I mean, that's been the classic thing that the Port Committee did over the years. In terms of things like, what's the appropriate mitigation that a project should include, like the SCIG, the Southern California International Gateway Project, or, trade pack expansion and things like that. What should be mitigations? I think that we've probably been remiss in not getting a wider,
Thank you, Pat.
get wider.
In the interest of time, let's take Thomas Norman's comments, since he didn't speak yet on this item, and then we can go to Lou, and then probably we'll take the rest of the month to identify some specific actions we might want to work on next month, or EIRs that we want to review, and then perhaps we can do that next month. So go ahead, Thomas, and then we'll have Lou, and then we will adjourn so that I can pass it out to the Public Safety Committee. Go ahead.
I know you need the next meeting, so I just want to react to Pat's comment, and I've made it my homework to talk to my colleagues in chemistry, environmental science, biology, to see if I can find somebody with some expertise who might also live in San Pedro and be willing to contribute. I know one of my colleagues actually did a study with a student, and they were measuring the air quality at my home and other places around San Pedro. So once those results are there, they might be of interest. So I'll just take that as an action item. Thank you.
Excellent. Go ahead, Lou.
Unmute.
Yes, thank you, Christian. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on what Pat was saying, because I do think that the San Pedro neighborhood councils, it would be great if we could have a united and sort of consistent message on the connectivity plan and discuss that with the Port of Los Angeles directly. I don't anticipate, realistically, I don't anticipate that happening now, not before the RFP is going out, and I think it's September 15th, because we're sort of, well, at least at Central, our Port Committee is regrouping, and that might be the best way of putting it without editorializing too much, but there is a new meeting on Monday, and I think that this committee definitely has interest in that, and I would hope that all of the thoughtful people here would come and try to see what's going on with that committee. But in the meantime, I got an email, and I know that you did too, Mr. Chair, and Doug Epperhart, an invitation from the port to just talk with them about the connectivity plan in whatever way we can, whoever is available, when we can go and talk. So, you know, I think that's the strategy now, to kind of just do that and start that way. And then hopefully in the next few months, we can have a more united front and take it from there. But tonight at 6, we have our land use meeting, and Monday is the port committee meeting. So thank you.
I think we're out.
Okay,
Chair.
thank you, Lou. Excellent comment, and that was a lot to think about. Thank you to the attendees and the committee members for bringing up these topics that we can work on in the future. And so let's go, and next month we will work on these issues, and as Lou suggested, there could be more collaboration. And if there's no further comment, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, very good. Without objection, then we'll adjourn, and then I will start up the Public Safety Committee of the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council, and perhaps some of you will attend that. And it was good to see you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas, give me a call later about the air monitoring situation.
Okay,